The summer sun hung low over the rolling plains of Willow Creek, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The riverbank, fringed with wildflowers, shimmered in the heat as 7-year-old Clara Dawson sat cross-legged on a checkered blanket, her pigtails bouncing as she giggled. Across from her, 10-year-old Jack Harlan, in a too-big cowboy hat that slipped over his eyes, was trying to lasso a fence post with a frayed rope. His attempts were clumsy, but his determination was fierce. "Jack, you ain't no cowboy yet," Clara teased, her voice bright with mischief. "You gotta catch something real first." Jack, cheeks flushed, grinned back. "Just you wait, Clara Dawson. I'll be the best cowboy this side of Montana. Gonna have my own ranch, herd cattle, and ride faster in the wind." Clara's hazel eyes sparkled. "Promise." "Swear it," Jack said, spitting into his palm and holding it out. Clara wrinkled her nose but shook his hand, sealing the pact. Then, in a burst of childish courage, she leaned forward and planted a quick, shy kiss on his cheek. Jack froze, his face turning redder than the sunset. What was that for?" he stammered. "For luck," Clara said, hopping up and running toward the river, her laughter trailing behind her. "So you keep your promise." Jack touched his cheek, a goofy smile spreading across his face. He didn't know it then, but that moment by the river would carve itself into his heart forever. 9 years later, Clara was 16, no longer the pigtailed girl who chased fireflies. Life in Willow Creek had hardened her edges. Her father's death 2 years prior had left the Dawson family ranch teetering on the edge of foreclosure. Clara spent her days mending fences, hauling feed, and helping her mother, Ellen, keep the bank at bay. Her dreams of college, of seeing the world beyond the plains, felt like distant stars, beautiful but untouchable. Jack Harlan, now 19, had grown into his cowboy hat. Tall and lean, with calloused hands and a quiet intensity, he'd spent the last few years working as a ranch hand, saving every penny for a plot of land he could call his own. He hadn't forgotten the promise he'd made by the river, nor the girl who'd kissed him for luck. But Clara had changed. The spark in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by a weight Jack couldn't quite name. They saw each other in town sometimes, at the general store or the annual barn dance, but their childhood ease had faded. Clara was guarded now, her smiles rare. Jack, though, never stopped watching her, wondering if she remembered that day by the river. One sweltering July afternoon, Clara was repairing a gate on the Dawson ranch when Jack rode up on his horse, a sturdy bay named Rusty. He tipped his hat, his blue eyes catching the sunlight. "Need a hand, Clara?" he asked, dismounting. She wiped sweat from her brow, squinting at him. "I can manage, Jack Harlan. Ain't your ranch yet," he said with a grin, grabbing a hammer from her toolbox. "Figured I'd practice for when I got my own spread." Clara snorted but didn't protest as he started driving nails into the wood. They worked in silence, the rhythm of hammer strikes blending with the hum of cicadas. Finally, Clara spoke. "Heard you're close to buyin' that land out by Miller's Creek." "That true?" Jack nodded, his jaw tight. "Got a deal lined up. Old man Jenkins is sellin' cheap. Just gotta scrape together the last of the cash." Clara's hands stilled. She knew the Jenkins land, prime grazing territory, the kind her father had dreamed of owning. The kind they'd lost when the bank started circling. "That's a big step," she said softly. Jack glanced at her, his voice low. "Told you I'd be a cowboy, Clara. Meant it." Her heart twisted. She remembered the river, the promise, the kiss. But life wasn't a child's game anymore. "Promises don't pay bills," she said, turning back to the gate. Jack's face fell, but he didn't push. He finished the repair and rode off, leaving Clara with a knot in her chest she couldn't untangle. That fall, disaster struck. A fire swept through the Dawson barn, destroying half their hay stores and most of their equipment. The bank, smelling blood, gave Ellen an ultimatum: pay the overdue mortgage by spring or lose the ranch. Clara threw herself into saving it, taking odd jobs in town and selling off livestock. But it wasn't enough. Desperation clung to her like dust. One evening, as Clara sat on the porch, staring at the stars, Jack appeared, leading Rusty. His hat was pulled low, his expression unreadable. "Heard about the fire," he said. "How bad is it?" Clara's voice was flat. "Bad enough. We're done for, Jack." Banks talkin'. It all. Jack sat beside her, the porch creaking under his weight. You don't give up easy, Clara Dawson. Ain't your way. She laughed bitterly. Ain't about giving up. It's about math. We can't win. Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then, he said, come with me. She frowned. Where? Just come. He led her to Rusty, and they rode out to the river, the same spot where they'd made their pact 9 years ago. The water shimmered under the moonlight, and the air smelled of sage and earth. Jack tethered Rusty and faced Clara, his hands shoved in his pockets. I been thinkin', he started, his voice rough. About that day. About you kissin' me for luck. About the promise I made. Clara's breath caught. Jack, that was kid stuff. No, it wasn't. His eyes locked on hers, fierce and steady. I swore I'd be a cowboy. And I swore it to you. But it ain't just about me anymore. I want you with me, Clara. Not just the ranch, not just the land. I want us. Her heart pounded. Jack, I can't. The ranch, Mama, the debt. I'm buyin' the Jenkins land, he cut in. And I'm puttin' up half my savings to help your mama keep your place. It ain't charity, it's a partnership. We run both spreads together. You and me. Clara stared at him, stunned. You'd do that, for us, for you, he said, stepping closer. Always been for you. Tears stung her eyes. She wanted to say yes, to fall into the dream he was offering. But fear held her back. What if it don't work? What if we lose everything? Jack took her hand, his grip warm and sure. Then we start over, together. I ain't afraid of losin', Clara. I'm afraid of losin' you. She looked into his eyes, seeing the boy who'd lassoed a fence post and the man who'd fight for her now. And in that moment, she made her choice. Okay, she whispered. I'm in. Jack's face broke into a grin, and before she could think, he pulled her close and kissed her. Not a shy peck on the cheek, but a real kiss, full of years of waiting and wanting. When they parted, Clara laughed, the sound bright and free for the first time in years. You kept your promise, she said. And you kept yours, he replied, touching the spot on his cheek where she'd kissed him all those years ago. Over the next year, Clara and Jack threw themselves into their plan. Jack finalized the purchase of the Jenkins land, and with his investment, the Dawsons paid off enough of the mortgage to keep the bank at bay. The two ranches became one operation, with Clara handling the books and Jack managing the cattle. It was grueling work. Long days, sleepless nights, and endless repairs, but they faced it side by side. Clara's mother, Ellen, watched them with a knowing smile. That boy's loved you since you were knee-high, she told Clara one evening. And you ain't been far behind. Clara blushed but didn't deny it. She and Jack were a team now, bound by more than promises. Their love grew like the prairie itself, wild, resilient, and vast. One spring evening, as they rode out to check the herd, Jack stopped by the river. He dismounted and pulled Clara down beside him, her hand in his. Been thinkin', he said, his voice low and serious. We started something here, 9 years ago. Figure it's time we make it official. Clara's heart skipped. What are you sayin', Jack Harlan? He pulled a small, tarnished ring from his pocket, a simple band that had belonged to his grandmother. I'm sayin' I wanna marry you, Clara. Build a life with you. Keep every promise we ever made. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. Yes, she said, laughing through her sobs. Yes, I'll marry you. They kissed by the river, under the same stars that had watched them as children. The water flowed on, carrying their past into their future, and the prairie stretched out around them, endless and alive. Years later, the Harlan Dawson Ranch was the pride of Willow Creek. Clara and Jack built a house on the Jenkins land, with a porch that overlooked the river. They raised cattle, horses, and eventually a daughter, Ellie, who had her mother's hazel eyes and her father's stubborn streak. Every summer, Clara and Jack would take Ellie to the riverbank, telling her stories of promises made and kept. And every time Jack looked at Clara, he saw the girl who'd kissed him for luck and the woman who'd made him whole. Their love wasn't just a story, it was a legacy, written in the dust of the plains, sealed by a kiss, and carried forward by the river that had witnessed it all.